really careful. Okay, moving right along. Treasurer's report.
I don't have an update from Benita.
Vanita is still,
I'll get the update from her this week, and I'll be able to have it for the next meeting.
okay. Well, there's a lot going on too. There's a lot of changes in the accounting system and things like that. So we understand. Okay, park manager's report. For all of you who don't know, this is Pat Jute, the park manager.
So I've always started out with a COVID report, and we were slightly up the last period. We're back down again, and there is one one person hospitalized currently. There are
On the reservation.
on the reservation. There are 8 active cases on the reservation and 8 people in home isolation. The home isolation doesn't mean they have COVID. It only means that they have, had contact. And so I see our experience here still as improving. And the park continues to go without reporting any new cases since sort of the beginning of the experience. A report on the clubs and activities. The Adult Center, they had the fabulous Liz's Chicken Dinner. It was well attended. It was beautiful in here. It was spaced very well, fit within the COVID requirements. There were any number of takeouts for people who did not feel comfortable sitting down or didn't want to, and then there was the tables were set up, for a family experience, and it worked really well, and it was way too much food. I ate mine for 3 days.
And I understand from everybody I've heard from that it was excellent food.
Yes, it was.
It always is.
Club 50 is working on their next takeout event, which would be a spaghetti dinner, or spaghetti feed. And I don't have details on that yet, other than it'll follow the same protocol as taco night. And there should be announcements out soon. But there's some really good news. We've been able to secure a structural engineer, and I met with the engineer and a contractor and our maintenance people this past week. We went through Club 50, and our worst fears seem to be only that. There is reason to believe that the building is in need of a number of improvements, but is basically structurally sound, and we could move forward with the idea of figuring out what it is we need to do to get the roof to quit leaking and to secure the posts that are holding the current roof up, and the things that we need to do to make the pool area safe, and to divide that off from the club area.
Pat, let me interrupt for a minute. This is probably the building that is in the worst shape in the park, right?
It along with the administrative building.
Okay. And have you tried to find insurance for the buildings in the park?
So as everybody knows, we suffered a fairly extensive fire in Family Center, and a year before that we had a dramatic leak in the Adult Center, which required that we rebuild the cafe. And those two losses combined was enough encouragement for our insurance company to say we don't want you anymore. And they also threw in all the wildfires that have occurred up and down the coast, including Bonnie Lake, which really got their attention, and the ones we experienced in Eastern Washington. And as a consequence, we've had trouble finding insurance for the buildings. All of our liability, all of our vehicles, all of our equipment and machinery, it's called Inland Marine, is covered. The Board of Directors liability insurance is covered. It's at a greater expense than we've had in the past. But the building insurance has been complicated, and we've been struggling with trying to find a carrier who would take us. We've even worked with the Tulalip tribes trying to find a solution. At the present time, our agent is going to a Washington state market that all insurance companies are required to participate in order to do business in Washington, and they are working on proposals for us right now. We have a third-party insurance company who has stepped in and is talking to us about this. But it's a challenge, and so a number of our buildings remain basically uninsured. We have taken steps to try to see that things don't happen. One is we have the rangers now doing a watch. They enter every building every 3 hours and go through the building and check each of the offices and the spaces and the heaters and so forth. So we're taking precautions, as many as we can. The S2 system that we have talked about at previous meetings also offers us the ability to put fire detection system in each of the buildings, which would report to the main gate anytime it senses smoke or anything like that. And we're in the process of discussing that with the S2 people. At the same time, we're working on the gate carding system. And I'm hoping that the next time we talk that I'll have some better answers to that particular part of the insurance problem.
Pat, the reason why I raised that, and for the people that are watching, I wanted to make sure that people understood that we are currently not insured on our buildings. Everything else is insured. Pat's working hard to get insurance for the buildings, but so far we haven't been able to find it. We will continue to look, and again, we wanted you to know so that it didn't come as a surprise down the line.
Can I-
Yes, Deb.
You know, this is Deb, and it's my understanding that part of the problem is because, and it's a collective problem over many, 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 many years. We're sitting in a bad spot partly because our buildings have not been maintained, and that's part of what we've been trying to work on as a board, you know, with our manager, and it's not an easy thing. So that's part of why dues have been raised and other things have been raised.
Good point.
And we just want you guys to know that, because we're not just trying to take everybody's money or anything. We're just trying to do what we can do to make this park safe and maybe be able to get a good insurance rate.
Yeah.
So,
Excellent. I think we've made the point, moving right along.
The next thing on my thing is DMT. I don't have a full report. I know, Bill, you're talking with Shar about.
Yeah, and it's fine, and
Yeah.
as soon as what we're talking about with DMT is getting a replicable report from DMT every quarter about sales and cost of sales. And this is the end of the first quarter, so we will get probably a report at the next meeting.
Yeah, I just would pass on that we had 20 total sales this past month. 4 of them were private and 14 were sales that DMT did, and 2 of those were PSCC owned sites. So
Good.
we moved a couple of those sites along.
Excellent.
So on a building situation, the Family Center, the store grand opening is being planned for the first week of May. Linda and Glenn are working constantly at trying to get all of the toys and games and the pool tables and table games and so forth back in place. The store has been remodeled. It's ready to go. They're anxious to move in there. There's still some work to do before they can, but again, they've made a plan and a grand opening, and so look for that coming in May. The laundry, we were able to take a door out, put in a window that they had covered up with bookshelves and so forth. We took out the window that was protecting, I could say was not protecting actually, the cash machine. It had been boarded over to try to keep people from intruding into that area, and that's all been taken out and repaired as part of our process. We put in vinyl windows all around on both buildings, and They have moved off of the mail center. They're done there, with the exception of the planters, and they're completing the project on the laundromat. As probably most of you have seen, since the main gate is closed today, tonight, and tomorrow, we are in the last steps of our paving, repairing potholes and so forth. Doesn't mean that we've gotten them all, but we're going back when we're done with these major portions, and we'll reevaluate the other ones. In the process, or part of this process, is teaching maintenance and developing a road crew who will be responsible for watching the roads, taking care of the roads, and having an ongoing process instead of just waiting until all of us have lost our suspension.
And our patience.
Yeah. We're working with a contractor on the gravel roads. We're trying to learn how to shape the roads so that the water runs off them, not down them. It's going to involve cleaning up culverts and ditches, getting some of the organics out and so forth. And maintenance is really active on this whole thing. Along with, they've done a tremendous job. You get a moment to stop, you can actually see the Port Susan entrance sign now. All the overgrown vegetation they've cut back, and they're in the process of cleaning up the front portion and portions as they go through the park. PPP loans, which are payment protection plan loans from the government. There is no change on the first one in our forgiveness policy. We're still waiting. They have 5 months to respond to us, and it is in the hands of the Small Business Association right now, our administration. The second loan, they asked us to make a new application, which was completed this week, and it's in a timely fashion. The grid, I would say, is on schedule and on budget, and we had a very, very good meeting with Salish. I'm going to ask Jacob to talk to you about that as soon as I turn this over to him. Jacob speaks a different language, and it's foreign to me, as it is to most of us, but the engineers at Salish and Jacob speak the same language, and he has been meeting with them, and we have a whole new level of confidence in the fiber optic and an understanding in the fiber optic process.
Cool.
Storage lots. Storage lot 1 is just about through. We're marking it right now, and we'll open it up for storage, for people to apply for storage, and we move on to storage lot 5. It's a small project to do that, and then storage lot 3, the big one, and we get them all done. They'll all be opened up for rentals again. Dumpster days is planned for May 22nd and 23rd. And so what I'd like to do, there's several subjects we have. One is the S2 project, the other is the election, and fiber optics, and I'd like to let Jacob comment on that and see if you all have some questions that you would like to have answered.
Is he going to comment on the election process? And
Yes.
everything? Okay. You're on, Jacob.
Okay, so I'll start with the Salish stuff first. So I have met with Salish, the engineers down at their offices. They brought me in, did a sit down with them. They provided me the initial pricing, the plans, and then we also discussed how we can utilize their fiber optic network for our administrative buildings. And what we're discussing is setting up what's called a GPON. In fiber optic terms, it's just another way for us to connect all of our buildings into one big, huge, massive network. That means the family center, the adult center, we're looking at maintenance, we're also looking at the mail center, the laundromat, and then later down the road, the back gate, all being part of one massive network, but making it to where how we get to the internet is only through the connection at our admin building. That gives us the ability to have more control over our employee network and not have to invest as much into infrastructure at each and every building. So it's very kind of like technical, but in simple terms, the entire park admin buildings or facilities being part of one network. And then that also enables maintenance to look into smart meters, security cameras anywhere in the park, and then various other features for like monitoring water pressure or how the levels are in the tanks. In discussions with them regarding rolling out the first set of fiber optics, when we're prepared to release those numbers, we will be going out to membership to pull in people's interest. In the discussions, how it will work is that Port Susan Camping Club will be the one doing the promotion and the gathering of the customers. And then when they register through the form on our end, it'll go through a sales pipeline directly to their sales team that can then reach out to the customer and finish establishing their accounts. The plans that they provided, they're not as fast as I was expecting, but in discussions with them, the future does have kind of a light in the, or like a light down the tunnel to where they will increase the speeds. They just don't know how much utilization there will be, so they're being conservative with the speeds that they're going to offer.
Jacob, were there any discussions of potential costs for the individual members?
Yes, and I could, we're not ready to release that out to the public yet, but I can provide those numbers to you.
When it's more finalized?
Correct. We don't want, we're still going back and forth on the marketing terms and what the pricing exactly is. But when we're ready, we'll release those numbers and start gathering customers. We're looking at our first set, phase one, being the front of the park. And then it will expand as they deploy out their services. So I'm pushing them out.
Okay. You want to talk about, you want him to talk about the election
Yes.
process?
Yeah, so for the election, the part of the election that we're in right now is the day before the electronic ballots get sent out. The timeline that we've already completed is the last day for petitions. There were no petitions. And then the last day to qualify for voting was April 1st. Tomorrow on April 6th, digital ballots will be sent out that will contain instructions on how to vote. So it'll be sent via text message and email. During this first part, individuals will have the opportunity to go to the kiosk at the mail center, vote via a phone line, whereas they dial in, enter in the code, and then they can vote over the phone. Or they can go to the web address and vote over the internet with the same code. On April 20th, if they do not vote through any of those methods, they will be sent a mailed ballot. This would be for both U.S. and Canadian members. And then they must send those mailed ballots back by May 4th. Anytime up to May 29th at 10 a.m., they can go to any of the 3 kiosk, phone, or electronic over the web and vote. But they have to get their mailed ballots back or sent in the box by May 4th to ensure that it gets back in time. May 30th to June 1st, they will tabulate the results. It is not tabulated by any employee or any volunteers that are related to Port Susan Camping Club. It is a completely managed hybrid solution run by Election Buddy, and they will send us the results between May 30th and June 1st with a CPA certification.
Election Buddy is the outside contractor that's going to handle the ballots.
Yes, we do not touch them. They don't get mailed back to Port Susan Camping Club. They get mailed from, and then they get returned back to this third party. We have no hands involved in the process.
Excellent.
So one of the other solutions that we added in was that you're sitting out there and none of this stuff works for you, but you know you want to vote, is that there will be a phone number that they could call and verbally vote, using, again, that unique number.
And it will be an agent, a person that answers the phone. They'll ask for their verification
Deal with S2.
options, and then they'll accept the vote. They can't vote more than once. If they, the first thing that gets voted, if they called in again or used a different method, it won't allow them to vote. The kiosk is currently set up right now. It has all of the different candidates. It has the dates, descriptions, and it's private. There's a privacy screen, so if you're off to the side, you can't see what's on the screen. And then there's a drape with red stickers on the floor to ensure proper social distancing based on the new standards, and to ensure someone doesn't peek at what they're doing for voting. And then there's a big banner on the outside, can't miss it, that says voting kiosk here.
Good.
So I can go on to S2?
Yes. Well, see if there's any questions, because I know voting
Okay.
is an issue.
Sort of too late now type of thing?
There were no other options available when we got done with this thing to find ways people could vote. And I'm optimistic that we will exceed the number of votes that we've seen in the past. I'm optimistic that all of the Canadians last year who were mailed ballots and who mailed them back to us too late to be counted because they came past the date will be solved by this.
And one of the issues with
Dean, make it full screen.
One of the issues with counting ballots, especially during COVID, is that if we had volunteers handling ballots and having to deal with all of that, then we're having to deal with COVID restrictions. And this just makes it a lot easier. It was very difficult to try to find. We went to two others, and they wouldn't even touch mail ballots. They would only do electronic voting. So this one was the only one we could really find that would be able to do it during COVID stuff going on.
So Jacob had a really good meeting with the engineers with S2, and that has included Omnicom's present, and Omnicom and S2 have been talking. And again, it's that secret language that these people seem to use that is very confusing. But both of them are speaking the same language and smiling. And as late as just before I left the office for this meeting, we were getting communications from both Omnicom and S2 where they're hot on the process of putting together the programming to enable what we want for it to work. Again, we have the question on what we're going to do about passes, but we have some time yet to solve that, and we can have an in-depth conversation about what we want to do about the 90-minute, 6-hour, 3-hour pass conversation. So, Jacob, you might want to talk about what your meetings were like.
Sure. So during our first meetings, we were kind of going over, feel-good stuff, making sure everyone's on the same page. The consensus of the meetings was that this will be a very simple transfer migration. There's nothing too complex about it. Really, the time-intensive part of the transfer is integration into MOS, but in discussions with our vendor that's dealing with MOS, it should not be any sort of problem. He's done it before at another park. I was provided the server to upload into our AWS cloud environment because we're not pushing out any more physical servers. And I got that pushed up into the cloud, got it configured, and then got it back to the vendor, and they were able to remotely connect in. And the vendor's satisfied with the setup, and they ordered the hardware with confirmation that their server infrastructure was set up. So this means that, if we have any issues down the road, I understand how the server infrastructure is set up, and so I can better describe to the vendor what issues we may potentially have in the future, but having faster response times to our access control issues if we have any. But besides that, they ordered the equipment, and we're, I would say, on track to getting it pushed out and getting it deployed. Everyone will, to confirm, because I've heard kind of questions on cards, the intention is to not require any changes of cards. People will keep the same card that they're using. I've spoke with our other employee that's dealing with managing of the cards, and that will not be a problem. It's just a facility code. That's the number on the card, and it's a pretty simple transfer. And we're all up in the cloud, so we never have to update our hardware. And if something ever happens, a catastrophe, everything's backed up in a multi-million-dollar data center with air conditioning and all sorts of other security measures and stuff.
Excellent.
So to the election process, I want to add that I put in the billing statement, there's an outline of dates and times and opportunities to vote. So each of the members will be getting that information in their statement as well. So for me, Bill, those are the issues I have. I've got a motion to talk about, and we can do that when we move further into new business.
We'll talk about them in new business.
Did you want me to mention about the Wi-Fi?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So you've probably seen in the notifications that we're pushing out free wireless internet into the park. This is kind of the first phase is a test on public Wi-Fi hotspots at the main kind of locations. And so in the future, with this first tested hotspot at the internet center, it would be pushed out to the family center, the adult center, and any other public spaces for people to access internet.
Anything in between.
No, because so basically the Wi-Fi hotspots will only be at the main facilities, but nowhere outside of that. So that way we are not competing. The speeds will not be competitive to Salish, so they'll only go as fast as a little bit slower than their slowest plan that they provide. But it's free internet service, and it's still better than what you would receive from a cell phone.
Okay. Pat, anything else?
No, that's good.
Okay. There are questions. Terrell?
Could you give a little more information on your meeting with the structural engineer? Do you have any details? We kind of jumped over that.
What I've passed on is pretty much what I garnered out of the conversation. We'll be getting a written report. The other thing is that through him and my discussion with him is he's recommending a couple of architects that they work with. So we could look at the architecture of the building and design a plan. So, but first I want to get comfortable with his report and find out what we have to do. It's going to take an HVAC engineer to do a system in there that puts the building into a pressure environment instead of the vacuum environment that it's in. And one of the conversations that we want to have is the air quality, because I understand it has been really poor in the past, and our attempts at trying to fix the building have not been successful. So we'd want to do it right this time. So when I get that report, of course, we'll forward it onto the board so that you have it as well, and we'll have a basis to start working from. We get an architect, we get it looking like what we can all agree to, then we can put it out on bid.
Thank you.
Excellent. Go ahead, Jay.
Sorry, one more thing that I think is pretty important. We are working towards being a electronic notary. Right now, we are looking at DocuSign to enable DMT to be able to sign documents remotely. But we're also working on getting the e-notary feature of DocuSign to be able to enable members to get notarized documents remotely for the park.
Thank you. Terrell?
Question about the Wi-Fi. Do we see any possible hazards with somebody sitting in, let's say, the DMT parking lot and downloading child porn with them accessing our wireless network?
So our network, in the test environment that's set up right now, we utilize OpenDNS that does do filtered blocking. And then I also do active monitoring of the network to ensure it's not being used for downloading any sort of illegal content, copyrighted content. My background is over 10 years in IT, network administration. I was also a senior systems administrator for an internet service provider. So I would say I do have some experience in internet security and ensuring that we are compliant with various rules out there and we're secure.
Any other questions, folks?
Good question, yeah.
And Pat, you are safe and Eve with your report?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So we got the one,
Turn on your microphone.
the one in the bold here at the top under the club activities for Alzheimer's fundraiser. Was that going to be discussed
Yeah,
now or
that's-
later?
Slipped over that.
That was also on Bill's agenda, so I was gonna wait.
Oh,
I thought it was
okay,
a.
it was, okay.
We'll
Can do that.
discuss it under new business.
Okay,
Scott.
very good.
Okay. Moving right along, how about old business? Reports from committees, and we can talk about the committees and what they're doing, but Deb, you had something?
Yeah, the survey is completed. The committee is putting it into an easier format for,
This is a sounding board committee
yeah,
for those
the
who
sounding
don't know.
board committee. They're working with the information, and we want to thank Terry, our board secretary, for taking the time and volunteering to help make that survey happen. I mean, and the committee did a great job too, but Terry facilitated that with her computer skills that are much appreciated, but they're putting it together. We appreciate everybody that is put in on this survey, because that gives us, areas to look at and to maybe, one thing I saw from the preliminary results is there's areas in which we need to do a better job as a board in communicating with the members, like on the buildings, okay, the condition of the buildings. I think we need to, that was one area that I don't think people are really as aware of it. So, we will strive to do a better job in communicating where we're at, and I think we've gotten a good start on it tonight, as far as Club 50 is concerned. But results should be published soon. I think it's going to come to board, and then it's going to go to the membership so that you can see what you all have said. So thank
Are
you.
you aiming for, is the committee aiming for the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay. And
Thank you.
by the way, Deb mentioned our recording secretary, Terry. Because of a variety of family issues, she had to resign, and we're looking for a new board secretary. So anybody out there that may want to take on what is a very difficult task of being the board secretary, just let us know. You can call anybody in the office, and they will pass on the information to us. Thank you.
Bill, can I jump in?
Go ahead.
They need to contact Sherry at she's HR, because she handles all of that, and then she'll connect with us, because there's a application process.
Okay, Sherry is in admin.
Yeah, so if you're interested in putting in as a board secretary, please send an email to, is it SHERRI at portsusancamping.com, and let her know, and then she'll take it from there and get it to us. Thank you.
Okay. Reports from any other committees? Scott, you have anything? Go ahead, Terrell.
Yeah, go ahead.
PRC is not meeting in April. We didn't get, the people didn't appeal on time. So we've got 5 that are gonna be moved to May.
To May, okay. And it's going to meet on what date in May? Do you happen to have that? For those who are watching, Terrell is checking her.
May 8th.
May 8th is the number for the VRC. Okay. Any other, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I
From
just.
architectural?
For architectural, there's really nothing there. I've been gone for 3 weeks, so I just been doing email communication with the architectural and the adult club. I've been in contact with the adult club president, Kemi. In my mind, I'm trying to come up with a proposal that I can help to facilitate opening up the pool room upstairs, something we can get to Pat to go over any kind of protocols that we might have. We don't have that many people show up for that, so there's not a lot going as far as social distancing requirements there, but it would be nice to have it opened up for people to start using that part of it if we're going to be able to open anything in the adult club here for other functions. That should be one of them also, but that's something we'll be discussing with the committee, and then it'll be presented by me to Pat to discuss it, see what we can come up with. Really, that's about it for the two committees that, architectural and the adult club on my part
Okay.
for right now.
In Club 50, I'm waiting to get in on the discussion about the Alzheimer's thing. So.
Okay. We had an issue about community service from VRC. Someone suggested that those who came before the Violations Review Committee and were given fines for whatever might be able to work off their fines by entering into some sort of a community service agreement. And we need to discuss that. It probably is more complicated than on the surface it appears. But Terrell, this is kind of your baby, so you want to kind of walk us through?
Bill, did you send out you sent it out to everybody, so everybody received Bill's
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
document? Well, really, it's just kind of open for conversation. We kind of put in some considerations as questions, basically. So we're just kind of open for people to jump in on how we would handle some of these questions, like repeat offenders. I think I've heard that people would not be in favor of offering this to a repeat offender, but that's a question. Financial hardship.
Yeah, who qualifies?
How would we identify that? It's kind
Yeah.
of private. It'd just be on the honor system. Who would monitor the community service? Bill had put in like examples, watching ranger vehicles, rangers would be in charge of that type of a thing. One of my suggestions would be weeding common areas such as back here. But who
Who would be
would it be the
monitoring?
honor system? I don't know. I don't
How do you
really
est-
envision somebody sitting there watching them.
Yeah.
Just give them a task and
You see
they
whether
do
it's
it.
done or it's
But
not.
how do you establish the value of their work?
You'd probably do somebody would have to look at an area and say, yeah, it's gonna take 4 hours, and kind of basically come up with a dollar value for every hour worked.
And who would that somebody be?
Well, it would be us, I would assume. It would be the
Us, meaning the board?
board would establish. I would expect us to be establishing those. Because it would just be one rate. I wouldn't make it complicated.
Yeah.
So
a
$4 an
standard-
hour or something like that,
Well,
$10
make
an
it
hour?
a standard 15 or something, something easy.
I think currently, for most volunteer groups where they count hour for hour work done, that it's about $18.70 an hour, so.
How much?
It's not money that you pay, it's money that, say for instance, we get
The
into.
value of it, Bill.
It's
not-
the value. It doesn't cost anything, but say, for instance, when we get into grant writing, there's matching funds or some of these other things. Anyway, well, I'm not going to get into that too much.
Keep it closer.
Sorry.
I think absolutely a hold harmless is going to be necessary.
Yes.
With this, no matter what.
Yes.
Which we have park standard hold harmlesses.
But didn't you say, Nance, that the hold harmless agreements weren't particularly effective?
They're effective. Maybe Bill did you have something to respond to that before I say anything?
I would suggest we take what we have, send it to the lawyer, and let him look at it and help us.
Well,
That's a good idea.
it is a good idea, and he'll know all the current RCWs and anything that may apply to us, and should be able to give us a good
I looked it
recommendation.
up, it's,
Yeah.
don't say very much.
Pat, would you talk to our esteemed attorney and have him look over the idea and give us his views, please?
Yes.
This is called kicking the can down the road.
I would be inclined to get him basically signing off, because he may say it just carries too much liability
Yep.
overall.
Yeah.
You know, I'd always kind of envision the $15 an hour just to keep it simple. You know, we're not,
12.50.
we're not basically having competitive services.
Right.
We're just trying to offer
Yeah.
a way for somebody to cover an infraction. I mean, you guys have all read this, so what are your thoughts?
I think it's good.
I thought it looked great.
I thought it was good.
I don't think there's gonna be a high demand for this service. I just
Probably
think it's a nice thing to have as an option. I really can't envision, especially with our new fine structure, because some of our fines are carrying $500. You know, you can't really, I mean, somebody's not gonna sit and work for a week to work that thing off. So, you know, there's gonna be places where it works and places it doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, and it may not actually make sense with our current fine structures, because our fines are gotten quite costly.
Well,
Overall.
after we get the views of our attorney, we could probably establish it for a while and see how it works. And if it works well, we can keep it up. And if it comes up with problems or issues that seem insurmountable, we just don't do it.
Yeah,
Simple as that.
I could see the garden group wanting to utilize somebody to help clean, you know, they're always, you know, have a large amount of
Physical
cleanup,
stuff,
you know,
yep.
gardening type cleanup, you know, I could see Glenn, you know, liking to have a couple of people that he could use for Port Susan days. You know, you're gonna volunteer for your day, and we're gonna excuse, you know, excuse your infraction. And
Yep.
Glenn and Linda could always use help with
Absolutely.
park functions, because they're very involved. But
Yeah.
I think probably starting with Mr. Trivet,
Okay.
if you can ever get him to respond. It's kind of tricky, but you can try.
Sometimes he's right there.
We'll await his interpretation of what we're doing. Moving right along. No other committee reports?
Can I add one other thing? I completely let this slip my mind, but last year we budgeted for a new radios and a new system using the cell tower that lives on Port Susan property.
Behind Comfort Station 8 on the hill.
And we've been waiting for a couple of things to happen in order to do that. And of course, we never knew who truly had control of the cell tower. We made some assumptions. So last week I was contacted by the Department of Emergency Management for the tribe. And the tribe called to ask me, us, if they could use our cell tower.
Well, there you go.
Because they have been working with Snohomish County DEM, that's the Department of Emergency Management, and they are installing antennas and radios, ham sets, to deal with an emergency. And we live in one section that they are not able to get to too well. Certainly had heard rumors about the cell tower, and so they want to put the antenna up. So it's even better than that, because DEM, Snohomish County DEM, had already given us an antenna and a promise of a radio for that purpose. That's one of the things that got us going to the cell tower. We think now that they may even come in and help us develop the pad that's there at that cell tower, maybe assist us with a generator, a backup generator for it, and some of the other equipment that's necessary. Their radio guru just contacted me again. This was just late this afternoon, and is coming in tomorrow to evaluate the cell tower site. And so it's, for us, that's pretty exciting because we can move to a digital repeater and tie it into the radios that we've been replacing with the Rangers. We can get maintenance then in radio gear and start opening up the communication throughout the park.
And they can use Comfort Station 8.
They can. They can use our cell tower.
With the building.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't forget the fine print.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Moving right along into new business, unless anybody has anything for old business. Bill, you have anything for old business?
No.
Okay. Terrell, anybody? Okay. Moving right along, new business. Let's talk about this proposed Alzheimer's fundraiser. Pat, you want to explain what it's about, and then we'll discuss it.
The activities coordinator from Club 50 has proposed, is a longtime supporter of Alzheimer's, the problems and the funding and the whole association, and she has worked on fundraisers over the past years and has come up with the idea of doing a fundraiser involving the park. It would be an all-day activity using the playfield. And the proposal that we have at the moment is like an independent member saying, I'd like to do this. As I thought about it more and more, I felt, I'm sympathetic towards what she wants to do. I think that we have a lot of people in the park who would even be interested. But I wonder if we couldn't make this a multi-club function, get the adult center or the adult club and Club 50 together to support Ann in her efforts to put this fundraiser together. There's certainly more that we need to know, but Ann has been behind our movie nights. She's been involved in the music in the park and a number of other things that have been proposed. She's very involved in all of the things we're doing from a volunteer standpoint. So, you know, I support it.
Scott?
Yeah, I would support it also, but as far as it having,
Wait a minute, you would support,
I would support the fundraiser, having the fundraiser. It's just, you know, the logistics of who all is going to be involved, clubs, you know, if the clubs say, yes, we would like to do that, that's up to them, of course. But in lieu of that, if the clubs say, no, we don't want to participate jointly with it, I would propose that if she wants to go ahead with it on her own and bring, you know, the volunteers that she would have, people that are going to help her, I'm sure, that if it's going to be held at the playfield normally would have a fee involved to rent the facilities, that we could waive the fee for that, and so that you know, whatever she would bring in for her fundraiser, she wouldn't have to worry about trying to pay the rental for the field. That would be my proposal if the clubs say, no, we don't want to participate officially, but just volunteers. So.
Any other comments on this, Terrell?
Is there a way to have an event that's a park-sponsored event and not have it just about the Alzheimer's, have the Alzheimer's fundraiser as a subset? I'm caution having the entire park and every member basically being pushed to one fundraiser by making it a park-sponsored or a board-sponsored event. So I'm concerned that we've got, you know, almost 2,500 members, and, you know, everybody, you know, a lot of people are passionate about certain charitables, but making it a board park sponsored, what we're really doing is we're saying everybody has to support this because it's a park function. So could we do it as a park function? Because it would be a nice day in the park, especially if we've got the other clubs, and make her fundraiser a subset of that event, so that it's not basically we're not as a board saying you're going to support this fundraiser because we think you should.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, and one step beyond that is we're a nonprofit organization. Yes, I know we're not for profit, but we are under those rules. So we would have to check further to make sure that we're not breaking any of the rules that our very fragile nonprofit status is in.
Of having a fundraiser.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, and
we
it's,
need to look at that.
and you're right. As a 501c7,
Yep.
that's because it's a recreational club. It's not in the same category as like the chapel
Correct.
or something else. I mean, and I mean, I think it's a nice idea, but I mean, if it was me, and I mean, and I don't have an issue with Alzheimer's fundraisers, I'd want to do one for Shriners, because Shriners helped my
Absolutely.
son,
Yep.
you know, when he was little. We all have our
We do.
little things, and some people want cancer research, and I mean, so I mean,
Well, what's, the thing that's, that goes through my mind is, what's gonna bring the people in? I mean, let's go down and give money. What are we gonna give back? Are we gonna give back music? Are we gonna give other types of entertainment? It might be well to have something like this attached to Port Susan Days, for instance.
That's what I was kind of.
I think I think that you're right on the money there, because
So to
we-
speak.
yeah, we really can't afford to fund a band and all that other stuff for an Alzheimer's, and I think I think members, some would like it, some might want other things done.
And if we had
It's-
if we had a board with the various things like Alzheimer's or cancer or whatever, and we could make it a contest to see who would get the most money. I mean, do you want your particular place to have? Yes, go ahead.
There's
That
a
was too
reason
bad.
why this hasn't happened in the history of Park. I'm sure there's a very good reason.
There is.
For it, because it conflicts with our not-for-profit
501c7.
status.
C7.
So
Yes.
I really think we need to, I think there's a very good reason why it hasn't happened,
Yeah.
you know? So I think Larry Trivet, you might even be able to find a memorandum on this, because I believe Don Franks was approached with this idea. So I wouldn't be surprised if you don't find a
Don Franks,
memorandum.
did you say?
Yeah,
Previous park
was
manager.
approached with the idea of a nonprofit fundraiser, and it became an issue.
It actually became an issue way before that, back in the 80s when fundraisers were done. The tribe actually got pretty upset and said, you can't do it. So, yeah, for real.
Yeah.
So,
Let me interrupt for just a minute. For those of you watching, we are coming to the end, pretty much to the end of the meeting, and if you have questions for us, now would be the time to call and get those questions on the board for Jacob to give to us in a few minutes. Anyway, go ahead.
what I
Nancy.
did want to say is we could offer booths to any group that wants to support a nonprofit agency, just offer them the booth for free, the space. And then what they do with their funding has nothing to do with Port Susan overall. That's the only way I can see of doing that without involving our branding.
Well, clearly, this needs a little research.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dean.
I was gonna suggest, based on what Terrell said and what Nancy said, maybe we, again, kick it down the road to the attorney and get some
Yeah.
guidance.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea, but I think we gotta go with caution.
Go ahead, Pat.
So I know in the planning of an event like this is pretty involved.
Yes.
And so as much time as they can get is important. One of the issues that's paramount here is that they would be using Port Susan equipment also, because part of her plan is to do a movie night and food service during the day and some other activities leading up to that. So it's an all-day event, and there's no two ways about it that we would have to be involved. And
Yeah.
and I'm not saying we wouldn't want to be.
Right.
I like Dean's idea about, a booth. This is, we're here and maybe a cancer
We need to
booth.
just set the framework.
Yeah.
Deb?
No, Daryl was
Well,
next.
that's why, maybe approach it like a day in the park,
Yes.
as a family event.
Yeah.
And then she can have a subset, or anybody can have a subset booth.
And with you saying that and my recollection of reading her proposal, it really sort of felt that way.
Okay.
You know, here's something for the park. You're not you know, you're not coming here because of the Alzheimer's thing and donate. We're having this fun day, and as a sideline, you know, we're going to make
Donate to
available
a
to you an
decent cause.
opportunity.
Well,
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Deb.
can I jump in? What I would suggest, in line with what everybody's saying, get the thing from Larry, an opinion from Larry, or look in your notebooks, you've got those notebooks, and see if there's something there already. And I would suggest it's done in correlation with Port Susan Days. Have a booth that day. That's what I would suggest, because I think that our members, and I think Ann had a really good idea, but I think our members might have a problem if they see funds being expended to a
specific
to a
thing.
specific charity. I really do, because we've got buildings that are falling apart, and we've got, not falling apart, but that are in need of work, and roads and grid and all,
Okay.
and all that.
Yeah. Pat, would you tell Ann that we really appreciate her ideas, and we'll try to incorporate them at some function
Yep.
later? Okay. We have on the agenda for new business a review of the board liaison to committees. Now, Bill Elder found a piece of information about what the board members' responsibilities were for the committees. Did you all get a copy of that?
Yeah, I didn't print mine off, but I did read it.
Did you have any problem with that particular old, kind of old policy? Yeah, Terrell?
It's the same as the one that's in my board binder.
What?
There's no difference between them.
Yeah.
It's not in ours.
Well, it's in the board binder you gave me.
I'm pretty sure it's in mine.
It's right here, and it's almost verbatim. There's,
That's out of an old book that Nancy gave me.
this is,
Yes,
yes.
I think,
It's in
the
my
new
binder.
one does not,
Okay.
has nothing.
okay, let me jump in on this
Deb.
one. And the new one probably doesn't, no, because, let me explain, I know why, and you know why. When it was, Fred worked on revamping them, and a lot of those documents were not included in that binder, and that might have been the binder that you received when you got on the board. Not the original binder,
Mine
the newer
has it.
binder. Right, you had the original, but you may not have.
But are the two documents the same or essentially the same?
I have none in my new book,
None of the documents.
none.
Okay.
I haven't gone word for word, but if I go beginning of paragraph last, it's the same,
Yeah, sure,
you know.
they're the same.
Same as here, that it was in my binder.
I'll have to look
What
at
I
mine,
want
but
to
I think I did.
suggest
Yes, Bill?
is that after the election, we get a committee and we take the orientation book and the board book that we don't have and make it one. So everybody has this information.
And as usual, since you made the suggestion, Bill,
I
just
like
for,
the suggestion.
just for people who don't know, Bill was in the Navy, and you would think that
ain't
a
learned a
20-year
thing.
Navy veteran would understand never to volunteer, but you just volunteered, Bill.
Well,
So
who
we
else-
like your,
Who else is gonna volunteer?
nobody.
That's-
I
that's-
mean,
that's
we
Bill's
volunteered
area.
you, Bill.
That's Bill's area of
Just wait till
expertise.
I pick the committee people.
Oh,
Oh,
But-
okay.
okay.
But Bill, I thought you were gonna be a one-man committee, no, sorry.
Bill, it's a good thing to do, and after,
It is.
after the,
Pat recommended it when I talked to him.
oh, so it's Pat's idea. All right.
I'm gonna be truthful about it.
You were trying to shift the blame. That's
No.
what you were trying to do.
I've been
Okay.
trying for 2 years. to
Will
get the book
will you take on that responsibility, Senior Chief?
And I
after
will,
the election.
And
I will
Nancy is
deliver all
volunteering.
those folders that I found that are, got a wealth of information from the beginning of the park on.
And I'd like to get a key to the fitness center so I can use the boardroom.
Pat, can you
Yeah, no
take care of that?
Yep.
Okay.
I got a key to get in, but not the main door.
So you don't want to share
We don't
Linda and
know.
Jacob's office?
Oh, is that your office now?
Well, I'm moving out now into the library.
Oh, over our dead body, Jacob.
You're not moving anywhere. You're staying here. No.
All right, so we got that covered. We're going to deal with reports on sales and park sales and private sales at the next meeting. We're at the point now where if we have any questions from members, I will pause for a moment. Wait, excuse me, go
I
ahead.
just have one quick question for maybe Pat.
Pat?
Are we talking about a annual meeting at all this year? The possibility of having it?
Good point.
So I guess I'm trying to watch what happens with COVID to see what we can do. Don was pretty vocal about us meeting back here again. I can't see us trying to house 400 people in this building, particularly regardless of where COVID is at this particular time. But we had a plan last year to put up tents and a stage down on the playfield where we could accommodate people for an annual meeting, for a display, and sort of our planned schedule for that fell in line with when COVID took another leap. And some of the people who were to participate refused, and it did not seem like a safe thing to do at that point in time, so it was tabled. So to answer your question, we haven't started laying the plans, but boy, I'd sure like to see that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, because couldn't we move forward with the sports field?
Yeah,
Even if
sure.
you
I
didn't
think
have a
that'd be
tent,
great.
it would likely your weather that late in May would be okay, like you did your fireside.
Except when
Yeah.
we plan for a meeting.
Well,
We've,
bring umbrellas.
look, folks, we've got to plan
Tent would
for a
take care
meeting.
of that.
It's in everything we have on the book, so we've got to plan for it. If something comes up between now and then, we have a reason for not having it, so.
And we can see if we can get the parliamentarian. Last year, she was not willing to come because of the COVID. She was, you know, she's older.
And, yeah.
And so we would have to see if we can get her, and we, I mean, I could get that started probably once we get a date.
Again,
and
we've
see.
got to plan. Jacob?
That's Saturday,
Is there a reason why we don't look at like a virtual
29th.
parliamentarian? Because basically what they can do is they could remote in over Zoom and still conduct the same business.
We could ask her.
Yeah.
Well,
We've got
would we
to
be open-
explore different alternatives, because we've got to make plans for a meeting.
So I will, so Pat, I will call Ann, our parliamentarian, and
Okay.
see if we can get her for that meeting, and then usually we have her come to the first board meeting after that, whether we can do it virtually or whatever. Do we normally get the lawyer to come to that too or not?
We usually do,
You
but
Yeah.
that can be done
First
virtually.
board meeting, you'd usually do it.
Talking
But I'm
to
saying,
your
do we
microphone
usually have
close.
the lawyer come to the first board meeting or not? Or even the,
Usually do the
so it's just the
second
parliament?
or third one. It was just a training procedural thing. It didn't have anything to do with the event
Right, right, right.
itself.
So do we need to have the lawyer at the May event or not? We don't, do we?
No.
That's just the parliamentarian. Okay, I'll call Ann McCarthy this week.
So in terms of where we are, we'd be, you know, we're 90% there with all of what we put together last year. And I do
Cool.
know that the park has held, you know, mass meetings under a huge circus tent when the park was sort of in that circus event. And so we can follow the weather and make a determination whether we need some sort of cover or not. But we've got the equipment, the sound gear, and we had it laid out. And I think that it wouldn't take much to put the plan together, pick a date.
Well, let's be
and-
ready.
It'd be the
Let's do it.
29th of May.
Scott?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and having this annual meeting is one of the main subjects that comes up with any of the members in communications on, they want to have that meeting.
And we need to give it to them.
And then we need to give it to them if at all possible. And so that, I think, you know, starting the planning on it now would be prudent.
Nancy?
And that's, this is equally important to that, is that our compromise and settlement agreement and our bylaws and all that say that we must do these meetings.
That's
So-
my point.
But I want to make a remark. We couldn't last year.
I know, I understand,
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
just
it's
so that the
looking
members
like
know.
we
No, we couldn't do
could
that because of
it now.
COVID. It was, and we went to the lawyer and he said, with the COVID thing, Last year, we
It would have been
we
bad.
couldn't, but this year, we can find a way.
Okay.
Let's not forget the donuts.
Well, yeah.
People have to have something to come to, yes. Jacob, do we have any questions? Before you say that, for those of you who are watching, after we take questions, and I hope that more people will send in the questions, we're going to go into an executive session because we have a personnel issue that we have to deal with, and that calls for an executive session. Okay, Jacob, question?
The first one is from Sandra Wiverin. How about starting some projects at the back of the park?
That's
Where?
Is she meaning like, improvements or like, like the grid and all that stuff? Is that what she's referencing?
That's all she has in the question.
Yeah, if it's a matter of the improvements, they're on a, and Pat can answer more if he wants, they're on a kind of schedule with the grid. And I know that, they're looking probably in the next year or so at well one, making changes there. And they've done some work on the roads back at the back of the gate.
No, I think she's talking about some sort of activity,
Oh, I don't know.
which
So-
is kind of amusing, given the fact that we're only a couple of miles from all the way at the back of the park to all the way at the front of the park, but
When we posted about the Wi-Fi hotspot, there was some response into why we didn't set it up at the back of the park, so maybe that has to do with it. We have done work on the back gate, and there's a future plan to expand out Wi-Fi to the back. It's just with everything and where all the utilities are positioned, there are plans to do Wi-Fi at the back and some various other projects. It's just things have to go into place in a specific order before that can happen.
okay. Another question?
Can
No,
I
wait a minute.
just address
Go
that a
ahead,
little
Pat.
bit? So, one of the conversations we've had, it keeps coming up, is moving that location to the overflow parking lot at outside of the adult center because it's more centrally located. We originally talked about moving the internet club to that location.
You're talking about the Wi-Fi test.
Correct, yeah. And and then in terms of projects in back, we have done a serious improvement to the chapel, hoping that it does not become a victim of some of the things we've experienced in other buildings. We've removed all of the baseboard heating and repaired a number of other issues, and we're scheduled to evaluate the wiring. The family center, of course, is all new wiring, and we got all of the baseboard and wall heaters out of the front gate building, and we have done the Ranger Gate building and back.
Also chapel.
Yeah, the chapel. And the Ranger building and back is scheduled to be restained and cleaned, and the roof, checked and cleaned. And we have done paving to the major issues, potholes in the back of the park, but the grid is going to go back there and cut up that road, and we can't see patching it and then have them cut the patches up and be patching it again. So we're going to go individually attack the potholes that are bad and a couple of the sections. Once we've completed what we're doing, our focus has been up to the four-way stop because the grid project is through there and they're done with that work. And but all of it's getting looked at, and I plan on presenting the board a list of all of the projects that really need attention in the park sometime after the first of the fiscal year, so that we can make that evaluation.
Okay.
Okay.
The next one, it's more of a comment. If you open it up to one fundraiser, it is going to mean that you have to open it up to others. And that was from S. Whitney.
Absolutely right.
That's what we were discussing.
You're right, Sandra.
The next question is from Debbie Marshall at site 1349. I have noticed a Connex container, 1 storage lot 3, and I was wondering if Connex containers are allowed to be put in storage lots, excluding Blue Sky.
It's the ELF project, which helps the elderly in the park to have a Christmas. That's what it is, and it's not rented. You know, it's something for the elderly in the park who do not leave their homes.
Terrell?
But to my knowledge, our rules do not allow that type of item in our storage lots because it's not movable, has no way of being moved. So are we gonna change our storage lots requirements to allow stationary items? Because right now, we exclude members from being able to do that in any of our storage lots.
Nancy?
You know, this would be a great opportunity, as Pat was saying, to look at what we have with all our storage lots and maybe do a complete redo on what we actually do in there. I'm just throwing that out there.
Can I
so.
comment, Bill?
Go ahead, Pat.
So when I spoke earlier about storage lot 1 being cleaned up and marked and set up, we have that same intention at storage lot 3, and the plan is to pull everything in there out, relocate it while we clean up the storage lot and identify the spacing and mark all of the spacing and then return stuff. There are other things besides that. We've recently pulled out 3 trailers that had abandoned notifications on them for nearly a year. And they are gone from the park. We pulled out a number from the back, storage lot 5, that are gone from the park. And we've looked at things that are in there that are occupying 2 or 3 spaces. So there's stuff to do there, but that's where we're headed right now. And this should all be done as we roll into spring, or excuse me, into summer. And that whole lot should be resurfaced with gravel and cleaned up and marked and the spots identified. So that, we'll look at that then, and if there's an issue there, we'll bring it to the board.
Awesome.
There's 2 more.
Working on it.
So there's 2 more. Next one is Hazel French from site 1664. If not all Canadians have a computer, how are they to vote per our bylaws? And in my response, we will be sending Canadians a mailed ballot if they do not vote electronically.
Nance?
Additionally, without exception, every Canadian that I've met in here has a cell phone, which they can vote on.
So I had an opportunity to be part of the test group to vote through this system, and of course I got it both online and on my phone. It took me 30 seconds to vote on my phone. It was really simple.
Yep.
And I just have a sense that that's going to work. It's going to encourage a lot of people to vote.
Okay.
The next one is Marissa Womack, site 534. It looks like a 2-part question. Do all the board members live in the park, or are they all recreational only?
All the board members live in the park.
And we are also recreational.
Who would be the correct department to put in a request regarding putting in chairs from the lower parking lot down to the lake? Not sure if it's possible or not, but would be nice to have a few stairs. Oh, they meant stairs, not chairs.
At the lake?
Yeah, they were requesting stairs.
You have an answer, Terrell?
Well, I think she's referring to actually a violation of Greenbelt. So people have been climbing down the hill, which has torn up the hillside.
Yep.
What my opinion, you need to put a fence there, and people need to take the road.
Yep.
Because we're
Are you
destroying
talking
the
about the thing above?
Greenbelt,
Yep.
and we're destabilizing that hill.
Yep.
And
And it's dangerous.
So are you
And
talking about
we're-
the one right over where they park?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
right off, and we're violating our agreement on Greenbelt use.
Okay.
That's a good
Right on
point.
all
Can you do
counts.
something with that?
I mean, it's a little extra, you gotta walk around, but, you know, unless you wanna do a header off the parking lot, you know,
Yeah.
you should be. So really, a little small split rail fence should be there to block it
So,
off, in my opinion.
so the answer, Jacob, to this person is that it's a safety issue, that's a steep bank, and we would prefer that people walk around rather than try to get down that hill.
Okay, and that concludes the questions. I don't see any.
Let's give
Others.
it a few minutes for people to actually come up with other questions before we adjourn for an executive session.
Someone says, "Hey, Pat."
Someone just said, "Hey, Pat."
By the way, just for people, I was talking to Jacob earlier before the meeting, and I asked him about the computers that he was going to get us so that we all have notebooks and with all of the information that there is to know about the park so that we all can sit here and never be without pertinent information. He said, and I'm quoting, maybe next meeting.
Good.
Yes, that's if we don't decide to like reconstruct the entire park and I get sucked into something else. So I actually brought a non-configured version of it, of the tablets. These are extremely affordable.
130, right?
130. And you know, it's so inexpensive that, you know, if somehow it gets damaged or stolen, it's not that big of an impact. They're detachable, so they work as a tablet. They also have accessory ports on the side, so as we look into, you know, different other ways they could be used in the park, we can do that. But they'd be set up to where you pretty much power it on, and then you can access your Dropbox document. It'll be set up in kiosk mode. What that means is that when you power it on, the only thing that you would be able to use is Dropbox and some browsing. It will have remote management capabilities, and it will also automatically connect to Wi-Fi hotspots around the park. So as we deploy our, I guess you can call it our internet grid, then you would kind of seamlessly connect to networks around the park. But until then, when you're here, you would connect into the network here. But if you're at your site or somewhere else, then you would just have to connect to that wireless network like any other computer.
Okay. Any other questions come in?
Let me check.
For those of you watching, Jacob is accessing his computer as we speak.
Go Zags, that's for Scott from S. Whitney. And then Scene says, boring, a couple members are falling asleep, goodbye. And that's it.
Okay.
Well, they're at home where they can lay their head down.
Well, it's been boring then. We can make it less boring. Okay. We're going to adjourn this meeting unless there anything else that people want to bring up? Nothing? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Dean says and Bill seconds. Okay. Discussion? All those in favor, raise your hands. All those opposed? Unanimous.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and,
Meeting is over and you cut us off, Jacob.
I'm sorry, I spoke too soon.
Can we have a 5-minute break?
That would be cool.
Why?
I'll just do it on the table.
Deb's already gone to the
I'm
bathroom.
gonna go back again too.
I have respect.
Okay, everybody, we're gonna go ahead and end the stream. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Oh,